Ever downloaded an app, one that like promises to make your life easier, and it just ends up making you want to chuck your phone across the room?
I've been there. We've all been there. And it's like, why? Why is this so hard?
Right. And it turns out a lot of it comes down to how well those apps are designed with the user in mind or not.
Yeah, and that's what we're diving into today.
We are talking all about user requirements in software development.
Because who wants to build something nobody wants to use?
Exactly. We've got some really interesting material to dig into.
Yeah, we do.
Excerpts from Build Products That People Love. Always a good goal, right?
Absolutely.
We've got the transcript from this industry-leading user requirements course and a podcast episode called Understanding User Requirements in Software Engineering.
So yeah, we are going to break this down, make it clear, figure out how to build software people actually enjoy using.
Yes, and how to avoid those software fails.
Yeah.
Because one of the things our sources mentioned is that poorly defined user requirements are a major reason projects fail.
It's incredibly common. Wasted time, wasted money, frustrated users. We've all been there.
Yes. And there's this myth, right, of the tech genius who just they just know.
Right. They're just in their basement coding away, and they're like, I know what everyone wants.
They're so brilliant, they just get it.
But it doesn't really work like that.
No.
It's more about empathy, and really understanding your users. It's about really getting at the why behind the software. What problem are we solving, not just the how.
So it's less about the technical stuff and more about really understanding what the people using it need and want.
Absolutely. Think about building a language learning app.
Okay.
A user requirement might be, as a user, I want to track my progress so I can stay motivated.
Right.
That's focusing on what the user wants to get out of it. Then the developers, they can figure out the technical how-to later.
It's like you wouldn't build a house without knowing how many bedrooms people need, if they want an open kitchen or a big backyard.
That's a great analogy. You've got to lay the groundwork first.
Exactly.
And it really is like detective work, gathering those user requirements. You can't assume you know. You have to get in there, ask the right questions, figure out what's going on.
So how do we do that? What are some of those tools? I'm ready with my detective hat.
All right, so you've got your classic interviews, right? Sit down with people, talk to them one-on-one, figure out what their pain points are. Questionnaires and surveys, those can be great, if you want to get feedback from a lot of people. And then observation, actually watching people use stuff. Because sometimes people don't even know what they need until you see them struggle.
Oh, that's so true. Like they don't even know to articulate it.
Exactly.
It sounds like taking a multi-pronged approach is really important here.
Oh, absolutely. You want to see it from every angle.
Okay, so let's say we've done our detective work, we gathered all this information. I'm picturing a big board with red string connecting everything.
Right, but we need to make sense of it all.
Exactly. We can't just have all these sticky notes everywhere. So how do we organize this?
That's where the good old user requirements document comes in.
The URD.
URD, yeah. Think of it like your central hub. This is what everybody on the project can look to get on the same page.
So no more developers saying, wait, what do they mean by that?
Hopefully not. It should clearly lay out all the requirements, easy to understand. We want to avoid jargon and ambiguity. That just leads to headaches down the road.
It's like that blueprint we were talking about. Takes those ideas and turns them into a plan everyone can follow.
Exactly. Keeps everyone on the same page. Developers, designers, everybody.
So we've got our blueprint. But software, it's not like building a house, right? You can't just build it and be done.
You got it. Software needs to be able to adapt. The world changes, users change, and your software needs to keep up.
So how do we keep things flexible? I'm hearing the word agile thrown around a lot.
Yeah, agile development, it's all about being flexible, adapting to change, being ready to adjust course.
Okay, so instead of being stuck with one plan, you're constantly kind of reassessing, making sure you're still on track.
Exactly. Think about Spotify.
Okay.
They're constantly releasing updates. They tweak things, add new features, all based on what users want and need.
So they're not just here's the app, take it or leave it.
Nope, they're listening to users, constantly making it better.
That makes sense. You try something, you get feedback, you make it better. It's like perfecting a recipe,
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep tasting and adjusting.
Exactly. It's about constant improvement. Now, speaking of real-world examples, there's this case study we came across, Heathrow Airport, Terminal 5.
Oh, yeah. I think I remember reading about this. Weren't there massive baggage issues?
Yeah. On opening day, it was a disaster. Thousands of bags delayed or lost.
Yeah.
It's a perfect example of what can happen, even with all the planning in the world, if you don't get those user requirements right, or if you don't test things thoroughly enough in real-world situations.
So what went wrong?
Well, the terminal itself, it was designed to be this amazing traveler experience,
Okay.
spacious, efficient, all of the latest technology, and for the most part, they pulled it off. But the baggage system, it was a whole other story. Technical glitches, software malfunctions, it just wasn't ready for prime time.
So even though they had the right idea in theory, it didn't translate to the real world.
Yeah, and it highlights something really important. Even with a great plan, even with an agile approach, you can't skimp on the testing. You've got to see how things work in the real world, with real users, and be ready to make changes.
That makes sense. So where does that leave us then? What's the big takeaway for, those of us who aren't building airports or music streaming apps?
It's about you, right? It's about empowering you as a user. Because when you understand these principles, you're not just stuck being frustrated, you can actually do something about it.
Okay, so instead of just complaining about an app, I can actually figure out what's wrong and articulate it in a way that's actually helpful.
Exactly. Let's say you're using that project management app, right?
Yeah.
And it takes you like 5 clicks just to schedule one meeting.
Oh, the worst. Been there.
The worst. But knowing what we know now about user requirements, you could say, hey, as a user, I need a faster way to schedule meetings, maybe a one-click option or something. You're not just complaining, you're giving them valuable feedback.
You're speaking their language.
Exactly.
So it's about understanding that software isn't perfect. It's made by people, and sometimes they don't get it right. And we, as users, we have a voice in making it better.
Absolutely. You might even inspire a developer to make a change.
I love that. Okay, so next time I'm ready to throw my phone at a wall because an app is driving me crazy.
Which we've all been there.
Haha. Take a deep breath. Think back to this conversation.
Think about those user requirements.
What problem is this app supposed to be solving for me? And is it actually doing that? And if not, how can I articulate that?
And you know what?
Yeah.
You might be surprised what happens when you start giving that kind of feedback.
It's like we're not just along for the ride anymore. We can actually help steer the ship.
That's what it's all about.
I like it. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of user requirements in software development.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did, from why user needs matter to how to gather them, document them, and even adapt them as things change.
And hopefully this gives everyone listening, whether you're building software or just using it, a better understanding of what goes into creating a great user experience.
And maybe even empowers you to speak up and make a difference.
Exactly.
So the next time you're using an app or a website, think about those user needs. And don't be afraid to share your thoughts.
Your feedback matters.
All right, that's all for today's deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those user needs top of mind.